Just record, and we're going to go live a couple of different places, and then we'll get the show on the road. All right, we're going to need about a minute more. Let's see here. Got to log out of my personal Facebook account and get into the proper one. Thanks, everybody, for your patience. You're in the right place. We're just a minute behind schedule, and we are just about ready now. So let's try this again. Let's split the live stream. Hey, welcome everybody. If you're just joining the call, you haven't missed a thing yet. We're going to get started. We're about 15 seconds away from getting started. Just setting up the live streams here and needed to get in the proper account. And now here we go. All right, everybody. Welcome to this conference call. This call is being live streamed across multiple apps. We have 65 people so far on Zoom, and we've got lots more in the Facebook community and in other places. Thank you for making time for this call. The goal of this call is to give you some time and love and attention and make sure that you're getting results with this protocol and having a great experience. To begin tonight's call, I want to welcome a very special guest. The guest name is Jeff Lanham, and Jeff and I were on a call the other night, and Jeff told me a little bit about his progress thus far on the protocol. And so I thought it would be a really good idea to ask Jeff to come on the call. Hey, Jeff, I'm going to remove my spotlight so that everybody can see you and only you. Jeff, how long have you been on the protocol, and what's your experience been like so far?
I got on the protocol December 20th of 2022. So 8 months, going on 9 months now. And it's amazing. It's changed my life.
Well, talk to us about that. Where'd you start and where are you right now?
Well, in October, when I first found out about the protocol, I was like, skeptical. So I went to my doctor and I got some blood work, and I'd been struggling with type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure and low testosterone for 20 years. And when I went to the doctor in October and got blood work, my A1C was 9.4, and they put me on a third medication for type 2 diabetes. And I was finally like, I contemplated, studied the protocol for another month, decided to buy, got on it. In the first month, I came off of my blood pressure medication in 1 month. And then when I went back for my 90-day blood work, my A1C had went down from 9.4 to 6. So they considered me pre-diabetic. So they took me off of 2 of my medications and just left me on Januvia, which before I got on the protocol, the Januvia wasn't even working for me. And I'd lost probably 30 pounds in 90 days. So I was also struggling with neuropathy really bad. And I'd been getting cortisone shots in my feet to kind of deal with the pain because I didn't want to get on more medication. I had tried, insoles and all that kind of stuff, and nothing worked. But so another month went by on the protocol. I was losing more weight, and I went back and got more blood work, and now my A1C was 5.7. So they took me off of my Januvia, so I was no longer on blood pressure medicine or any diabetes medication. And at that point, my testosterone level had doubled. So in 4 months on the system, off all medication, and my testosterone doubled. By that time, my neuropathy pain was probably about 40% better than it had been. And weight was starting to fall off at that point. It was crazy. Now to today, 8 months in, still off medication. My blood pressure is like 120/78 about every day, every time I take it. My A1C is down to 5.4 now. No medication for that. My neuropathy pain is probably 70% better now, and I've lost 54 pounds.
Oh, Jeff, I mean, I got goosebumps right now just listening to you. Listen to that. I mean, a year ago today, think of where you're at and where you're at now. And my hat is off to you because I know that takes commitment and discipline. And gosh, when I first started the protocol, the hardest thing for me was just remembering to take it every day. Using the Unimate in the morning instead of getting up and popping something into my mouth, right? So that was
Yep.
part of it. Taking the balance 10 minutes before my meals and waiting until I ate. That habit forming takes time. And so credit to you for forming those habits, and you're living proof of what this protocol can do. I'm just so happy for you. Now, I know that your mother had some health problems, and so you told her what you were doing. And could you just share a little bit about what your mom has experienced thus far? And how old is she, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I just did a video with my mom last week, so people can go back and watch that. But my mom's 72 years old. After seeing what it was doing for me the first couple months on the system, she was like, well, I was just told I have high cholesterol. And they put me on a shot and a cholesterol pill. And she had had high blood pressure most of her adult life. And she's had IBS issues forever. I mean, as long as I can remember. And she was on 2 prescription meds for IBS and 3 over-the-counter medications for IBS issues. And now she went to the doctor two weeks ago now to get her results of her blood work. And this is a female doctor that she's had for years. And her doctor said, Rita, what are you doing? And my mom pulled out the 2 packets, the packet of Unimate and the packet of Balance. And her doctor's like, what's this? And she went and looked it up. And she told her, she said, I don't see anything wrong with these. Everything in them is all natural, and they're obviously working for you. She said, Rita, I haven't seen cholesterol numbers like this in the teenagers that I see. She said, we need to get you off your cholesterol medication. And she said, we need to make an appointment with your heart doctor so he can get you off of your blood pressure medicine because your blood pressure is normal. So she goes next week to have her carotid artery checked because she had some plaque and stuff in it. So we're hoping that they're going to tell her everything's good there, but she's gotten off her cholesterol medication, off her blood pressure medication, and off of all of her IBS medication in 5 months. And she's lost 25 pounds.
Oh, that's so awesome. 72 years old, lost 25 pounds off of her. I mean, if IBS, it sounds like she's dealt with that for decades. I'm just so happy for the Lanhams. That's so awesome.
Thank you. Yep.
Anything else you want to add about your experience? I mean, the microphone's yours. If you need a little bit more time, anything else you'd share?
I just want to tell people that are worried about fasting. I've done fasting before ever getting on this protocol and had success losing weight. But a month and a half or 2 months in, it was something that I couldn't sustain. I just felt like I was depriving myself. And on this system, I have not felt that, not one day. I've been doing it almost 9 months now. I've never felt hungry on this system. I've never felt like I was depriving myself. It just works amazing, and it makes fasting so much easier. If anybody is concerned about that, definitely give it a shot because you'll be amazed at how easy it is.
Oh, thank you for that. And Jeff, I echo that sentiment. You guys, in a second, I want to move forward with the call, but in a second, if you have been on this protocol and have noticed something good for you, if it has made a measurable positive effect on you firsthand, or maybe somebody in your family, somebody you care about, don't do it yet. But in a second, I want to call on you just to write a sentence or 2 in the chat. And we've done this for a couple of weeks now. And the reason why I think it's so powerful is if you're like me, you've tried everything, nothing's really ever worked for you, or you've tried it and it's worked temporarily, but not long term. And so you just become skeptical. And all the things that work for everybody else doesn't work for you. And so I feel like the belief building that can come through sharing what it does for all of us that have tried everything else out there can be really, really good. So, okay. Jeff, thanks so much for your time, brother. Thanks for coming on. I called Jeff kind of last minute because I was planning on another guest, and Jeff was like, "Hey, I'm happy to share my story," and that's very generous of you, Jeff. Thanks so much for your time, and please hang out on the call if you're willing to. We'd love to keep you around. Maybe somebody will have a question for Jeff. So, okay, we're going to move forward with this call, and everybody that's on the call, we're going to do things a little bit differently this time. The goal of this call is to give you guys coaching and support. If somebody's on the protocol and is not getting the results they want, or if somebody just started and really wants to maximize their results and get some tips or some advice on how to do that, this call is a Q&A. It's a live coaching call. Usually it is a little bit too much of Trent talking. And so I'm going to try to minimize the amount of Trent talking on this call, which, we'll only know if I'm successful at that by the end of this call, but I'm going to do my best. I have a special guest on. Somebody is asking if somebody can get in. There's nobody in the waiting room. There's actually no waiting room turned on. So they can join the call. If they've got the right link, they can come right in the call. Okay, so I want to bring on a guest, and our guest is somebody that's been helping us for the last couple of months now. She's amazing, and her name is Lindsay Venn. And Lindsay will be sure to let everybody know if you have questions for Lindsay outside of this call, how to contact Lindsay. You guys, Lindsay is an expert. Lindsay has worked side by side with the very famous Dr. Benjamin Bikman, probably the guy that when people talk about insulin resistance, he's the first expert that comes to mind. He's amazing. I've seen him speak now in Vegas. I've seen him speak in Singapore. I've seen him speak in Seoul, Korea, and I think once in Hong Kong. I've traveled all over the world to hear this guy speak. He is amazing. And Lindsay is really, when you open the kimono under, in Ben Bikman, it's the great work of people like Lindsay Venn. And so Lindsay is one of the founding members of the Metabolic Society for Health Practitioners. I hope I'm saying that right. And is all day, every day, spending her time educating people about insulin resistance, obesity, type 2 diabetes, prediabetes. Her knowledge base on this is so much deeper and wider than mine that I wanted to bring her on. And Lindsay, talk to us about insulin resistance, what it is, how to beat it. And the microphone's yours for a little while.
Awesome, Trent. Thank you. It's a very kind introduction. I'm going to share my screen because, as you all know, I really like PowerPoint presentations because I think it helps deliver the message a little bit more clearly. So bear with me when it seems a little bit like a lecture. Trent, do you see that okay?
I see it perfectly. Yep.
Perfect. So everybody asks, so I will post my website again at the end, but my website and my business are here. It's venintegrativemedicine.com. So if you want to reach out, I am certainly happy to help. My job day in and day out really consists of convincing people. We've all been told calories in versus calories out. We've been told a variety of things. And so my job is to convince people. And the best way to do that is through education. And so the reason the Unicity program works, the Feel Great system works so much is because it targets insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is the #1 cause of all chronic diseases. It is, as you can see here, it's a pathological condition, meaning it's something that we create in ourselves. It's not something that's genetic. It's because of diet, style, and habit forming problems. This happens when we don't use insulin like it is supposed to be used. Those have seen this lecture before. I did add this graphic in here. So the way it works is insulin, every cell in the body needs insulin in order to use glucose except for red blood cells. So if this is any cell that you've got going on, insulin will attach to the insulin receptor. It opens up this GLUT4 mechanism, allowing glucose in. And so that's how insulin works. But the problem is when we become insulin resistant, this insulin receptor is exactly what it sounds like, resistant to the effects of insulin. Insulin gums up the receptors because it doesn't get in, glucose can't get in, and we have this chronic response of eat more glucose, more insulin, gain weight, store fat, etc. So again, it does impact every cell in the body, and that's why things like PCOS, fatty liver, Alzheimer's disease, all of those happen because it affects all of those different kinds of cells. There's been lots of studies done. This is the one that's probably most famously cited. When they looked at the general public, they showed that only 12.2% of Americans are metabolically healthy. That means that 88% of us are sick, and it can be to a very minimal extent, or it can be to a very significant extent, but very likely that you or someone you know has some metabolic illness. I did steal this off of Ben's slides, and I added to it this time compared to the last time. Why does this matter? Because again, insulin resistance is the cause of most chronic disease. And so you see heart disease, diabetes, cancer, fatty liver, stroke. I added in the blood pressure, the low T that Jeff mentioned, leptin resistance, erectile dysfunction, GERD. I mean, the list could go on and on and on, but this is a really good graphic of how many things it can impact. So how, and I like people again, understand how. So why does high insulin, this hyperinsulinemia word, or insulin resistance impact blood pressure? Well, it does it in a couple of ways. One of the first way that impacts the nitric oxide system, which causes vasoconstriction. If your vessels don't dilate the way they're supposed to, you will have increased blood pressure. The other things that happen is we have an increase in aldosterone, which is at the renal tubules, which causes you to retain more water. More water in a not able to vasodilate system will lead to, again, more hypertension. We have endothelial dysfunction, which is very well discussed with erectile dysfunction, and then an inflammatory response by your macrophages. When it comes to coronary artery disease and cholesterol issues, we've talked about this before as well. This is out of Ben's book, actually. So if those of you who don't know, it's called Why We Get Sick. He really focuses on, and I've been practicing this way for the last, I can't even tell you how many years, because I did it as a dietitian too before I went to PA school. Triglyceride to HDL ratio is your #1 indicator of poor metabolic health. We really like number to be less than 1. As long as you're less than 1.8, you're okay. But all you do is take your triglyceride, divide it by your HDL, and figure out if you're this pattern A, which is really kind of a healthy way to be, or this pattern B, which is going to promote cardiovascular disease. Alzheimer's. I love talking about this one the most, probably because it's the most motivating thing that people are afraid of and are willing to make changes because of. And so we do know Alzheimer's disease is now called type 3 diabetes, and because there is insulin resistance in the brain. And so when we have less insulin sensitivity in the brain, we can't use glucose. Glucose is your brain is extremely finicky about what kind of fuel it will use. 2 things, glucose or insulin. If you are insulin resistant, again, you can't use glucose, and I say that wrong. It can use glucose or ketones. If you don't have insulin, if you're insulin resistant, you can't use glucose. If you're on a standard American diet, you're not making ketones. And so your brain becomes dysfunctional because it doesn't have the energy it needs. And so again, Alzheimer's is the one that's listed here, but can also do with other neurologic issues such as Parkinson's disease, neuropathy, migraines, etc. Also remember, if you have hyperglycemia on top of insulin resistance, you have that issue with the advanced glycation end products, which will lead to more damage to all of those neurons. Fertility, I do love talking about this one as well. PCOS is the #1 cause of infertility. It is directly related to insulin resistance. I work with a fertility group in Delaware. They send me all their patients with PCOS, and we can change their fertility outcomes just by changing the food. High insulin levels will inhibit this thing called aromatase, which leaves our hormones in the androgen mode. Things like testosterone can't convert to estrogen, can't convert to LH, don't have ovulation. The other thing that happens with fertility is gestational diabetes. And so gestational diabetes is, extreme insulin resistance. It will increase your risk of having type 2 down the road. But the other thing, and I didn't include it last time, is it increases the risk of the child having insulin resistance. And so I included this picture of this really cute obese baby, but you have to think about it. If you think back 30, 40, 50 years ago, we didn't see toddlers running around that were morbidly obese. And that's because of insulin resistance. When mom has the fetus in the womb and has really, really high end levels, the pancreas actually develops more beta cells than a normal human, meaning as these babies grow, they have the propensity to make more and more insulin compared to a normal human. And that's how they can become so obese by the time they're 2 or 3, even in younger ages. So I always use this as a motivator for my moms who are trying to get pregnant. Don't just do this for you. It's saving your baby this life as well. On the male side of things, it will cause insulin resistance, will cause low testosterone, which will inhibit spermatogenesis, meaning you're not going to produce as many sperm and going to be as healthy. And then we also have the endothelial dysfunction I mentioned earlier, which leads to erectile dysfunction, obviously causing problems with fertility. Cancer. So cancer is something that continues to be on the rise. No matter what kind of medications they come up with, no matter what kind of interventions and chemos that they have, cancer prevalence continues to go up. We have not been treating it as a metabolic disease, which I like to point out, and I think we probably should. The picture up in the corner is from Ben Bickman as well. It looked at different prominent cells that develop cancer, breast and prostate being the two, and they did find that these cells have more insulin receptors because cancer loves those. The more insulin receptors they have, the more glucose they can take in, the more they can proliferate, survive, metastasize, and transform. And so changing your thoughts on cancer to be more about metabolic health and reversing insulin resistance can be very, very impactful on cancer. Fatty liver. I added some extra slides here too, just to give people an idea. The picture up in the right shows the difference between a healthy liver and a fatty liver. And people say, okay, well, what's going on here? You have to remember there are many tissues in the body that are not designed to store fat. Exogenous fat is the term for that, meaning I have fat being stored somewhere where it shouldn't be. Muscle cells are that way, liver cells are that way. We can get things called fatty pancreas as well. And that is because hyperinsulinemia causes us to store fat in these tissues that were not designed to store fat, and fatty liver being the most prominent one of them. This map shows the prevalence of fatty liver in all of these different countries. You're looking at 68% in Europe, 52% in the US. It's growing and growing and growing. The bottom slide here shows that non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, not alcoholic cirrhosis, but non-alcoholic fatty liver disease is now the #1 cause of hospitalization in the United States. So what do we do about it? We have got to lower insulin. And so like Trent and Jeff had both said, you can do this without the Unicity Feel Great system. Is it a lot easier with the system? Of course it is. So follow intermittent fasting. Try to get your carbs, especially your refined processed carbohydrates, down. Prioritize your protein intake. Focus on only natural healthy fats. Avoid seed oils. Quit snacking. Get rid of the snacks. That's where the balance helps. Avoid your processed foods. And then make sure you're using the right kind of sweeteners when you're sweetening your food. Unicity, just a little bit on this because Trent's going to go into it. The reason Unicity helps is it's directly meant to reverse insulin resistance. So the Unimate is really, really powerful when it comes to making fasting easy. It suppresses your appetite, it improves your energy, it helps with brain fog. The chlorogenic acid will improve insulin sensitivity at the cell. The balance will decrease the glycemic effect of food, helping to lower insulin, and it helps to keep us full so we snack less. And so again, I did put here, we want to also try to do a low carb, healthy fat diet, but Unicity certainly helps make that happen. I'm going to put this up again. If you want my email or my website, it's right here. You can peek at it. I think we're going to hold questions though until after Trent is done with his portion. Let me stop my share.
Lindsay, thanks so much. Okay, so I love that. I love everything you just shared there, and you sum up insulin resistance much better than I could. I'm going to keep you around. I'll take you off the spotlight for now, but I'm going to bring you back in a moment when we do Q&A. So thank you so much. And Lindsay's education on this is just top notch. She knows her stuff better than I do, and I really, really appreciate that. Insulin resistance, in my humble opinion, is the #1 problem that the world is facing right now in terms of metabolic health. And a lot of people think that this is just a North American problem or a United States problem. It's not. In fact, there are many countries that are even worse off right now than the United States. I was very surprised to learn that one of the most metabolically unhealthy countries in the world is Kuwait. Another one of the most metabolically unhealthy countries in the world is China. Now, when we think of East Asians like Chinese people, we often think, well, geez, they're all thin. They can't have these metabolic health problems. 50% of East Asian adults living in China are insulin resistant, pre-diabetic. This is everywhere. And it starts with what we're eating and also what we're not eating. So the root cause of the insulin resistance is eating too much, too often. And on this protocol, we have a very, very simple two-step process for solving that problem. Okay. Now, I am not counting calories. I am not on an elimination diet. I'm not doing extreme exercise, and neither are many of you. But this protocol works fantastically. Now, before I share a brief bit about how to use the products and the protocol, now is the time that I'd like to call on you. If you have been on this protocol and have noticed a positive result for you or somebody that you love, if you could just type 1 or 2 sentences into the chat, I probably won't be able to read them all, but I'm very, very interested in reading some of these as we get into this protocol. So I saw a couple come in that I'll read. It came in earlier, and I think it started with John Osgood. John Osgood said the following. Oh gosh, where did it go? I may have lost it. All right, let me scroll a little bit and try to find it. Stella Laurel, been on it since July of last year and have enjoyed the freedom it has given me. Off blood pressure medications, diuretics cut in half, lost 21 pounds and 14 inches, no longer using oxygen during the day. Have been on oxygen for 17 years. The Feel Great system has changed my life so much already, only 105 days in. Stephanie Green, I have lost 30 pounds, reversed my type 2 diabetes, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease blood work is the best it's ever been. My doctor truly made me proud of myself, giving me the results I received yesterday. I owe my life to this system. Oh, Stephanie, I'm so happy for you. Okay, I reversed a 2,000 milligram per day, heavily medicated type 2 diabetes diagnosis. In 50 days, I'm totally unmedicated on the Feel Great system. John, that's awesome. Holy cow. Guys, and by the way, these are crazy stories, and many of you I've never met. I would love to have you come on and share your story sometime. So maybe next week or the week after, if you're willing to share your story, I'd love to hear about your experience. I mean, this is crazy. Stephanie Green again, I was just taken off my statin medication per doctor's orders. Honestly, I have not taken my statin in 5 months. I told him that, and my doctor was amazed. I'm going to bring him some business cards and help other people use this protocol. Oh my gosh. I'm still pinching myself in disbelief, but this is reality. My goodness, it feels great to feel great. Lost 50 pounds, testosterone up 300 points, no more chronic fatigue, no more headaches, off CPAP machine. I feel 20 years younger, no more anxiety or depression. Been on the protocol for 7 weeks now. I've never had so much energy. My sleep is better. My body has been healing in places it hasn't in years. And on top of that, Joe Jones says he's lost 33 pounds. Denise, lost 25 pounds. I reversed my prediabetes and insulin resistance. Mijin Brown, reversed my prediabetes, normalized my triglycerides, improved my brain fog, mood, and energy. Shannon Davis, triglycerides down from 250 to 50. Holy cow, Shannon. And HDL up from 53 to 117. An HDL of 117 is probably the HDL that angels and, glorified beings would have. If we were to go and check all the American gladiators that used to be on that television show, there probably would not be a single one of them that had an HDL of 117. Everybody on Baywatch, I'm talking Hasselhoff, I'm talking Pamela Anderson, wait, was she on it? All the people on Baywatch, they did not have HDL of 117. HDL of 117 is Superwoman. Way to go, Shannon. Michelle Morgan, down 22 pounds in 3 weeks, sleeping better, swelling down, IBS symptoms gone, no more brain fog, skin looks better. I mean, guys, I can't read all of these, but I hope you are. I hope you're reading these. There's literally 40 messages that I don't have time to read. We could end the call right now. If you need to know whether or not this protocol is legitimate, look no further. Now, how does it work, and how can we get this to happen for you? Everybody is different. Some people go on the protocol and they tell me, Trent, I'm off my diabetes medication. I'm like, wait a second, you've been on this protocol for 8 days. What are you talking about? That happens. Other people are on it for 68 days and they feel like the scale's not moving yet for them. And I wish I had an easy answer for that. Perhaps Lindsay Venn does. But what I've come to find is Number one, if the results aren't coming as fast or as drastic as you'd like them to, there's usually one of two problems. Either you're not using it properly or you're self-sabotaging. I guess a third option is you just need to give it more time. That's possible too. Some of the self-sabotage that I'm talking about, I am very qualified to speak about because I do it all the time. One of the problems with this protocol is when you're on it, you can get away with murder when it comes to your diet. Like sometimes psychologically, I'm just like, man, as long as I have a couple packets of this balance before my meals, I can eat anything. And I actually eat irresponsibly from time to time. But when I am eating normally and following this protocol, the results are staggering. So here's how it works. We are not bending the laws of thermodynamics, nor are we defying physics or science in any way. We are actually just putting science on our side. If this is breakfast, and this is lunch, and this is dinner, we are skipping one meal a day. And the easiest meal to skip, I could go into the science, but just take my word for it. The easiest meal to skip is breakfast. When we skip breakfast, we eat dinner, obviously, we go to bed. While we're sleeping, we're fasting. We wake up, and instead of breaking our fast with breakfast, right? We are going to extend the fast. And when we're fasting, we're keeping those insulin levels intentionally low. This allows us to regain some insulin sensitivity. But what we're also doing is we are burning our body fat for fuel. Now, I want to say this is important. When we're fasting, we are not starving. We are simply switching fuel sources. Instead of burning food for fuel, we are burning our love handles for breakfast, right? And our bodies feel great when they're fasting. Unfortunately, fasting is hard for most people. It's difficult. Now, when it comes to eating food, when they started stripping the fiber out of the food that we're eating, our blood sugar got out of control. We lost all sense of satiety and started overeating. And I've done lots of videos and I do lots of content about the importance of fiber for our metabolic health. And so if in a perfect world, we had a garden salad in our back pocket that we could whip out, and before we're going to have that not so healthy lunch, maybe we're having pizza for lunch, or maybe it is a healthy lunch, but if we could always have that garden salad of fruits and veggies and herbs and seeds and lots of different types of fiber in our back pocket, well, then our blood sugar wouldn't spike. Our insulin wouldn't spike. We wouldn't be prone to overeating or snacking between meals because fiber is very satiating and does wonders for our blood sugar, our cholesterol, our triglycerides. And since it's unrealistic for most people to have a garden salad in their back pocket, this part is also difficult for many people. So here's where the protocol makes it easy. When we skip breakfast, we save $5, right? Now, you cannot get breakfast at McDonald's for $5, so you really probably save more than that. But let's just go with $5 because it's easy math. We take the $5 that we save skipping breakfast, and we use it to cover the cost of these products in this protocol, which makes it easier, okay? So instead of struggling with fasting or fiber and lacking the dietary discipline to avoid snacks and eat enough fruits and veggies and all those things, I sip the Unimate while I'm fasting. When you sip the Unimate during your morning fast, it makes you forget about food. It does. I mean, Lindsay talked about chlorogenic acid and some of the real science behind why it works so well. But in layman's terms, when I am sipping Unimate and I have one sip, maybe every 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I forget about food. And that's a big statement coming from a just like cereal snacker like me. Then when it's time to break my fast before my meals, I have a blend of plant fiber. Now, this is a blend of plant fiber that's unlike any other fiber in the world. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second so I can show you how it works. You take a packet of the Balance. This is the orange flavor. There's a pink lemonade flavor. There's a lime flavor that was just launched. Let's go with the orange one. When you take the fiber, you mix it with water. And if you're taking it for the first time, this is important. Cold water. No ice, but cold water. Shake it 3 times. Done. Don't shake it. Don't keep shaking. Just shake it 2 or 3 times. And when you do it, you drink it immediately. Now, when you drink this, it has a very thin texture. It's thin. It's thin. It doesn't, it's like orange juice almost. But once it enters your stomach and it warms up a little bit, it's going to get thick and it's going to expand and turn into a gel. So drink it quickly. You want that to happen in your stomach instead of in your glass, or it won't be very tasty. Now, when you take other fiber powders, the reason why I don't just recommend going to the store and buying Metamucil, I did this last week with Metamucil. We're going to do it with Benefiber today. If you take one of these generic fiber powders that you can buy for like $20 at the store, I'll even do a double dose just to give it the benefit of the doubt. We'll mix that up. Okay, so we've got two examples here. This is the blend of fiber that we use on the protocol. This is just a generic fiber. And I'm going to let this sit here and let it warm up a little bit and just thicken and expand. Okay, so the protocol, and we'll come back to that demonstration here in a moment. The protocol is that simple. It is not calorie counting. It's not, really anything other than replace your breakfast with Unimate. You sip the Unimate to fast, and then you have the balance, the fiber blend before your meals. Now, if you know you're going to do a super naughty meal, maybe you're going to have birthday cake and ice cream at a birthday party or pizza party, or if I'm going to have a donut, if I know I'm going to have a bunch of carbs, I'll do 2 packets of balance before that meal. It fills me up. It helps me not go hog wild on the pizza, but you can do that. Some days I'll also do, this is my second Unimate today, right? Because I'm fasting until dinner. I haven't broken my fast between lunch and dinner yet. So you can use more of the product. They're safe. There's no medication in them. They're both in the PDR, the physician's desk reference. They've been studied at about a dozen different places. It was studied by the Cleveland Clinic. The Cleveland Clinic said that this product, I'm paraphrasing, is going to change the world and reduce the need and/or dose for lipid-lowering drugs on a population basis. The University of Sydney studied it. Everybody that studied it said the same thing. This stuff is the bomb. Now, why hasn't everybody already heard of it? Because a pharmaceutical company does not own the patent on it. It's really that simple. If a pharmaceutical company had the patent on it, everybody would have heard of it, right? If you've got let me find a place to draw. All right, I don't know if I can find some space. Let's find some space. So if you've got the the scientific community over here, and you've got the medical community over here, the medical community is where there's a connection to the people, right? When people need medical help, they go see their doctor. They don't go see their scientist, right? There is a space in between the scientific community and the medical community. And that space is filled up by these guys and these guys. And so if there's great discovery and research happening by people like Lindsay Venn over here, unless these guys have a financial interest in sharing the message, it doesn't get shared to these guys, which means that the people don't find out about it. But over the next couple of years, you're going to see this stuff everywhere. The secret is just about out. The cat's coming out of the bag. Instead of all the injections and the medications like Jeff Lanham was on 3 diabetic medications last year. Now he's not on any of them. Now, who wants to inject themselves with insulin all day or struggle with their weight for the rest of their life or be on blood pressure medication, blood thinners, be on statins, right? Nobody. So this protocol is going to change the world. It's as simple as that. So with that being said, I know that there are people on here that have been waiting for me to stop talking so that they could ask some questions and get some help. So if you have a question, you're welcome to raise your hand. There's a little function on Zoom where you can raise your hand and we'll bring you on the line. If you'd like to add your question in the chat, that's okay too. I'm very behind on the chat. So I'm so far behind on the chat that you should ask your question again, just in case you've already asked the question if it was not answered yet. Okay. Do we have any questions? Go ahead and raise your hand or ask it in the chat if you've got a question. I'm going to bring Lindsay back on, and Lindsay, good, you're unmuted. Gosh, and I could read these stories you guys put in all day. Noel Watson asked, why don't you want to shake it more than 3 times? Great question. So what happens is it starts to get very, very thick. So a second ago, you could see through the bottle and still see Trent. Now you can't see Trent anymore. Even though plastic is slippery, this viscous fiber gel created a matrix that will surround the food that you eat, disguise it, it packages it in fiber, which slows the digestion of the carbohydrates. That's very important. That's what keeps the blood sugar and insulin spikes down. It blocks some of the fat absorption. And when you take this gel, and let's say that you're going to go have lunch, and on your lunch plate, you're really going to have 3 things, right? You're going to have protein, you're going to have fat, and you're going to have carbs. Well, this chip represents the fat and the carbs. It's going to go into your stomach, and it, if you look at it, almost looks like gel. It creates a gel around the carbs and the fats. And that's what you want it to do. Unfortunately, when you take something like Benefiber, there's no viscosity. It just doesn't work. I mean, I think it's truthfully, I think it's truthfully a total waste of money. It just drips off. There's no viscosity, there's no gelling. And this is why other fibers, fiber powders, psyllium husk, wheat dextrin, inulin, all the other fibers don't do for you what the Balance does. Okay, we've got some questions. George, you are live and on the line. I'm inviting you to unmute. Stella, we got you next up. George, go ahead and unmute. We're ready for your question.
Hey, Trent. Hey, quick question about the Balance. I've noticed, some of our customers and stuff, they're having a lot of issues, and it's primarily the female that have a lot of issues with bloating. We've asked them, to back off and do like a half packet, but sometimes they still continue to have the bloating issue. Is it just that their microbiome is that far out of alignment and it's going to take a longer period of time to get tuned in?
Yeah, so when somebody experiences gas, bloating, constipation, or diarrhea by adding some soluble fiber to their diet, that is an indication that they have something called dysbiosis, which is a very damaged gut. Now, a damaged gut, the key to fixing a damaged gut is actually fiber. Fiber is the only thing that will fix it. But that sounds like a problem because they're like, wait, the fiber is what causes me pain and constipation and gas and bloating, right? And so, yeah, the only way that I'm aware of to fix that is to drink lots of water. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water. If you're dehydrated, that could be the problem. But drink lots of water and start slowly. Gradually scale up. Having some fiber should not be a painful experience. If it is, it's an indication you've got a very damaged gut. So, and this all comes from my research in the book Fiber Fueled by Dr. Will Boltzfeld, a GI doctor. He's awesome. Lindsay, do you have anything else to say on gas or bloating that comes to mind?
I think the only other thing I'd add is if that's a problem, I'd have them be more diligent with their diet too. I mean, if you're taking in a bunch of really sugary things along with the fiber, you might be counterproductive when it comes to what the benefits of the fiber are. And so just be more diligent getting rid of those refined processed carbs.
Okay, yeah. And excuse me, but you brought up that one point, Trent, about constipation with fiber. It's funny that you bring that up. My wife has that issue with it. And it was funny because she experimented where she stopped and then she wasn't having these issues or problems. And she's had gut issues. She had ulcerative colitis in the past. And, this has tremendously helped a lot of those issues.
Well, good. Yeah. So with her, okay, so this is mostly soluble fiber, and that's going to soak up water. So if she doesn't drink enough water, if she's even slightly dehydrated, it's going to result in constipation. Now, there's a couple of options for that. The easiest one that has helped me and people that I know personally firsthand is drinking more water. So drinking more water is going to be really important. And then what Lindsay said is spot on. In addition to pure soluble fiber, she might need some things in her diet that have some insoluble fiber. Look up some good sources of insoluble fiber that will help kind of clear them out. Now, people, when they think of fiber, they think it's going to give them the runs. But that's insoluble fiber. Soluble fiber does the opposite. Fantastic question, right. George.
And simple insolubles are things that are nut seeds. I mean, any seed is very insoluble.
Except for
Okay.
maybe a chia seed. Yeah, good. Good. Okay. Thanks,
Thank you.
George. Stella Laurel, go ahead. Stella, it's always good. Stella's been on the call before. Awesome, Stella, to see you. Go ahead.
Hi, nice to see everybody. Trent, I have two comments, okay? So the first one is like last week, I tried to do a 24-hour fast and I was going to go for a 36-hour one, but I had never, ever, ever, ever tried that before. And so I went ahead and completed the 24-hour, but then I got really nervous and I said, oh gosh, what if I, during my 36-hour, my blood sugar goes really low and it was almost time for bed. And I said, what if I die in my sleep? Because I'm that way, I think death is going to come to me really easy. So yeah. Anyway, so I do want to make that comment first. I did drink my Unimate and my Balance, as I always do. But that day I was like, you know what, I better eat something because I just don't feel good about going to bed on an empty stomach.
Okay. Lindsay, you're smiling. I want you to respond.
Oh, I love these comments. Thank you very much for sharing. So I promise you'll be fine if you do a 36-hour fast. Everybody, including skinny folk like Trent over there, have plenty of fat on their body in order to fuel themselves for weeks.
Oh.
So that being said, unless you have a really good reason to do an extended fast, you don't necessarily have to do them. 24 hours is great. You're super comfortable with that and you can do that like twice a week. That's just as powerful as a 36-hour fast. So do what you're comfortable with, do what is sustainable. If you can't sustain it, you're not going to do it. It's a waste of time. So 2 24-hour fasts is just as good, if not even better than 136.
Okay, great.
And just a
that's
little
good to
follow up
know.
on that. One of the cool things about like survival is, if we got progressively weaker and weaker as food was, as we were not eating, the human race would have been wiped out like the first winter, right? So what happens is actually when we're fasting, our faculties get really sharp. I mean, your mind works better. And I've done some really extended fasts, like I've done 5-day water only fasts, and you feel fantastic. Now, this is not for everybody, so please, guys, I'm not giving medical advice here, but I did some experimentation. We actually feel very sharp. I work out fasted now every day. When I work out, anytime I work out, I don't work out every day, but anytime I do work out, which is most days, I do a fasted workout and you will be fine. What Lindsay said is absolutely accurate. Okay, Stella, you had another question.
I have another concern. It's a concern.
Yeah.
About 30 years ago, I had my gallbladder taken out. Okay.
Okay.
And because I'm on TikTok, I hear a lot of people say, oh, if you had your gallbladder taken out, then you need to supplement with different things, ox bile, bitters, liver juice, and all this stuff, right? And I know because, I don't know, but my mom was a diabetic and she ended up passing away from cirrhosis of the liver. So it's like in my family kind of thing, like cirrhosis is in my family. My cousin was just diagnosed that way too. And I'm just kind of concerned about that because I'm thinking, and I have an appointment with my doctor, but I can't get in until January. So I'm going to see my doctor. But I just wanted to make that comment because, many of us that are diabetic or pre-diabetic had our gallbladders removed. And so therefore, at the time, 30 years ago, or even 20 years ago, doctors didn't say anything about it. You had your gallbladder removed, go on and live your merry life, right? But then as a result, I'm hearing that like more and more people are suffering with cirrhosis of the liver. So can either of you kind of speak to that?
Lindsay.
So my thoughts on that is the increase in liver problems doesn't have anything to do with gallbladder. To be honest with you, it's probably more the prevalence of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, like I had presented earlier. I think you just have this commonality between more people are getting their gallbladder out and more people are developing fatty liver. So they're trying to draw an association where there truly isn't one. For people, we get this question all the time, so I'm glad you asked. For people without a gallbladder, and this is, again, for people just without a gallbladder, there can be a variety of other things that this doesn't speak to. You are totally fine to do low carb, the Unicity protocol, any of those kinds of things. Where problems come up are intermittently changing fat intake. If one day you eat 150 grams of fat and the next day you eat 30 and the next day you do 200, that's where your gallbladder, lack of a gallbladder is going to cause you a lot of grief. So try to just really be consistent. Even high fat diets, even ketogenic diets are well tolerated without a gallbladder as long as the fat intake is consistent.
Okay. So that's what I've been doing. I've been researching a lot of, what are healthy fats and, avocados, salmon, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what I do. I was diagnosed pre-diabetic about 12 years ago. And as soon as I was diagnosed that way, I right away went low carb. I'm like, I don't care what
Good girl.
happens. And then I found this wonderful product and I started using that over a year already. And I'm so happy about it. And I feel so much better, but still that kind of was in the back of my mind, right? So anyway, but I just wanted
Great
to share
question.
that. Okay.
Absolutely great question, Stella. Always good to see you. Thanks for coming on the call.
Thank you, Trent.
Appreciate you. Yep. Okay. Other questions? I don't see any other hands up. I did get a private question sent to me, and I'm waiting for her to tell me if she wants me to answer that publicly or privately. So I'll hold off on the reply to that until I hear from her. In the meantime,
I
Go
saw one
ahead.
in there about LDL that I'll go ahead and answer. So there is a bunch of, the dogma around cholesterol is that high LDL will lead to heart disease, and that's just absolutely not true. If you have healthy cholesterol, meaning it is not damaged by increased blood sugar, high LDL is actually good for you. I would rather see a patient with low glucose, low A1C, high LDL every day, every minute of every day, rather than see somebody with a high A1C and low LDL, because the chances of that LDL, even though it's low, being highly damaged, which will leak into the vessels, which causes the problems and the plaque buildup and eventually the heart attack, that comes from glucose and inflammation that comes from the standard American diet and lack of things like fasting. And so if your LDL is crazy, if you have a 300 LDL, we might be having a different story and we'll do additional testing. But if your LDL is less than, I don't know, say 180, 170, I'm not worried about it as long as we're keeping glucose under control.
Love it. Thanks so much. That's a great response. So guys, I don't think we have any more questions. And as I like to say, hey, the best meetings are the ones that end early. So we can end this call. But if there's any other questions, if there's somebody that's been thinking about asking something, wanting to ask something, but just doesn't know if they want to take up the time, it looks like we've got a minute or two right now if you want to ask that question. And if not, we'll say
One
sayonara.
other question I'll just hit on was the sweeteners. Somebody asked me. So natural sweeteners are fine. Stevia, allulose, monk fruit, erythritol, all of those. I know there's been some comments about the sucralose that's in the Balance product. It's at the very bottom of the list. And when you're reading labels, the further up it is on the list, the more prevalent it is in the actual ingredient list. Sucralose is the very last thing. So the actual amount of sucralose in this is tiny, tiny, but also I think we're getting rid of it is what I
The
understand.
pink lemonade is stevia. The lime that's available now is stevia. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the sucralose, but just we're so tired of answering and talking about sucralose. So we said, hey, let's get some options that don't have sucralose. So that's good. All right, Charmaine, I replied to you privately. That's not really in the scope of tonight's call. So shoot me a text message. I sent you my number. Shoot me a text message. I'm happy to help you with that. Everybody, thanks so much. These calls are so fun. And gosh, it's so good. I know that people are busy and there's probably some TV programming you could be spending your time consuming right now. But to have you on this call, the whole goal of this is to help you get results. And if there's somebody that you love and care about, or if you personally are struggling with your metabolic health, I know of no other protocol in the world that can produce these types of results this quickly and predictably for people of all body types, ages, genders, walks of life. It just works fantastically. And so glad that you guys love learning about it, because learning, the knowledge is power. And as we spread awareness about this and talk about it, we can reduce suffering throughout the world. And so anyways, thanks everybody for being on the call. We'll wrap up with this. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out privately. Oh, hold on. We got a couple questions. How long does balance take to break down in our gut? So one of the interesting things about fiber, Tiabe, is that fiber doesn't get absorbed in the small intestine. Fiber actually it passes through. When you look at calories that come from fiber, you can just pretty much ignore them. Fiber is not going to get absorbed. We don't have the enzymes to break it down. It goes through the 30 feet or whatever we have to work with, and it is being fermented by the microbes, by the bacteria in our gut. How long does that process take? I suppose it depends on the person and the type of fiber. But for me, well, let me back up because I think you might be asking something that I'm not answering. If you've taken a balance and more than 30 minutes has passed and you still haven't eaten yet, then you might want to take another balance. If you're asking how long can you wait before food, before the effect is wearing off, try to time it 5 to 15 minutes before your meal. I just about went off on a really long tangent that was probably unneeded. Franny is asking, I have diverticulitis. Will this be a problem using the system for me? Will it help me? Lindsay, do you have an opinion on that?
No, actually, it'd probably be very helpful with diverticulitis. It's the insoluble fibers that you have to be more careful with when it comes to diverticulitis, not the soluble ones.
Okay. Brittany Zedek is asking, I saw a question above asking what is the connection with insulin resistance and migraines?
So it's very similar to the Alzheimer's thing. Again, it's a fuel problem. We develop migraines for a couple of reasons, and one is because of poor fuel. I will send you, Cesar, I have some wonderful videos I can send you on migraines and anti-inflammatory, lower carb stuff. But the other problem is, again, that end glycation aged, what is the word I'm looking for? The glycation, AGEs, advanced glycation end products. That is high blood sugar causing damage to the neurons in the brain, leading to migraine headaches. I've had multiple patients reverse completely chronic migraines with following an insulin lowering system of sorts.
Okay, thank you. We had somebody ask, hey, I want to start the protocol. How do I get the supplements and protocol under your code? So here's a really cool thing about what the manufacturer does. The manufacturer has a member price discount, which means when you order the protocol through somebody that has ordered it before, you can save about $45, $50, not just on your first order, but on every subsequent order. You lock in that pricing for life. So if you found out about this protocol through me, I do have a link. And when you use my link, it's good for me. And so I appreciate you using my link, but it's also good for you. You get to save $45. You get the 90 days, no questions asked, money back guarantee. You get to be a part of our support community. You get to be on calls like this and learn more about the protocol and ask questions and get results, right? That being said, if somebody else has referred you to this call, you should use their link and their code. They'll give you the same discount, the same low price, and just reach out to people directly. Either, you can text me or email me or reach out to me on social media or whoever referred this to you and take advantage of the discount because the pricing is drastically better. Okay. Here's another question. We'll end with this. I'm on Ozempic. I have lost 30 pounds. I'm coming off Ozempic from 2 milligrams down to 0.25. I am on the program now for 21 days, and I've gained 3 pounds in a month. Does Ozempic make your system crazy? Does it take some time for that to normalize? Lindsay?
Yeah. This is the unfortunate part about these GLP-1 agonists. I have numerous patients who are trying to come off them, and it's very, very difficult. You are doing the right thing. You want to taper down slowly as best as you can and not cold turkey off of these medications because of the effects of that. The studies do show that most people will regain the weight. So you have to be just super diligent with your dietary efforts. But I do highly recommend to continue with your efforts to come off of it. If you need more help, please reach out to my website. I'm happy to help make that happen. But unfortunately, these drugs are known to be hard to get off of. That's big pharma doing their thing. Lifelong prescribers.
Yeah, I mean, right. It's almost like threatening to get off it. Stay on it or else. Well, I do know some people that have come off the protocol, Barbara, to put your mind at rest. I do know some people who have come off those drugs, and this protocol has been a really, really nice landing spot for them. There's a girl named Erin, a type 1 diabetic, a diabetes educator. She's awesome. And she started to spread this awareness about this protocol because she was on, I think it was Ozempic, and came off it and was terrified about what would happen. And she hasn't gained any weight back. and is, I think, now losing weight and doing great. So I hope that that's your experience as well. And come back next week and maybe we'll have some more time for that call. We're out of time. You guys are awesome. Thanks so much, Lindsay and Jeff, for being my guest tonight. Thanks so much to all of you who are contributing to these calls. We really appreciate you. Love you guys, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thanks.